I was gonna do a bit to just continue playing that for like a few minutes and wait until you interrupted me to be like, okay. But I decided against it. I ran the intro a little bit longer than I normally would.
I totally phased out. I was just into it, so it probably would have been 10 minutes before I said anything anyway.
Yeah, it's a good starter, I think, just to
Yeah,
get the ball rolling, get you moving a little bit in the
yeah.
groove.
Get the creative juices flowing. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. But what up, everyone? It is November 1st here, joined by my colleague Brian, self proclaimed gentleman and scholar.
There are very few of us left, and you, sir, are one, especially with that wonderful mustache that you could sink a watch to. You look like an airline pilot before Coke.
Yeah, a little bit of upper lip lettuce.
There you
It's
go.
it's good. It's like the male equivalent of like women getting a new haircut or something.
Something like
So
that. Yeah.
just like change up. It's a way to change up the image, I guess. Because for me, I never really considered like a different haircut. I mean, I have buzzed my head a few times, but I don't really have the luscious locks that I used to really make things work. I kind of just have to work with what I have now. So luckily, I
Yeah.
have facial hair to be able to do it. And I was thinking about doing handlebar, but I think that'd be a little bit too far in the workspace. I kept making jokes about it, like, "Hey, what's the company policy on handlebar mustaches?" And everyone's like, So I never really got much traction with that. So this is what we're rocking, and yeah, I'm kind of happy with where it came out because there've been times before I've shaved and it gets uneven, and then I try to even it up on the other side, and then it gets too high, and then I even it up on the other side, and then it just looks bad. So then I just shave completely.
Yeah. Well, it looks great. I wish I could pull off facial hair, but it's like the Asian side of me, I guess. If you want to go with that stereotype, where you really can't grow a mustache unless it's like a Fu Manchu. So uh, I avoid mustaches and beards like the plague. So uh, I don't do well with facial hair. So I'm a little jealous.
It's fine. We make up for it in some ways. I'd rather have a patchy beard than be short. You know, not that I have any reservations about my height or anything, but when you look at things, it's like, yeah, I can grow a beard. That's cool, but other people have other things that they have as well. So it's really just like working with what you have. And with the beard, I felt like for so long there were, maybe it was Atomic Habits, or it was said somewhere. I've read a lot of books, not to completion, so I just get ideas from places and forget where they're from. So if I'm not giving credit where it's due, it's just because I don't exactly remember where I'd seen it. But I think the basic idea of, instead of trying to hide something, instead of trying to mask something, to actually work on something. So like for me, yeah, I mean, I had gained quite a few lbs over the years, and I think the beard kind of helps hide some of that. So it's really just like being comfortable with yourself, and then me not worried so much about vanity, to be like, I'm not trying to hide who I am, and I'm also working to become better, but it's not like I'm going to go out and buy clothes that make me look slimmer. It has been a goal of mine to get healthier, get more active, eat better, and I don't know if it's really something that's like kept me from doing it, but I just don't want to be somebody that kind of tries to hide from that truth or be insecure about it. Like, be more secure as a person. Like, yeah, I mean, this is where I am, and I'm working on it, and it's going to take time, and it's difficult. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, I like what you said. Don't cover up anything about yourself. Just be yourself. It's a freeing experience. So if that mustache helps, keep it how you want. It's not about the size of it, it's about how you use it, you know? I think I read that in the book somewhere. But maybe it's another subject. I don't know. But I commend you. I've started going back to the gym pretty regularly. I didn't go through since the last time we talked. I didn't go through with that Fit Body boot camp. It was I had kept it for about 2 weeks, and I couldn't go through it. It wasn't financially feasible, so I'm going to YMCA. The one by me just recently renovated, so it's all nice. It doesn't smell like you know, piss that's been soaked in carpet that's like 40 years old. So that's, you know, it's a start. But it's got a pool, basketball court, running track. So I'm not just really limited to the weight room, which, you know, I could probably go to a gym that's, I don't know, 20 minutes closer, 15 minutes closer, and do that. But I get bored easily with that. I'm not always just interested in doing weight training. I want to diversify, make it fun. So that's what I went with, and it was, you know, a fourth the cost of what a fit camp is, and I can sign up at any time for those type of like circuit trainings or, you know, hit classes, cycle classes, all that. So um, I like the diversity for it, and I what I'll miss obviously is like the community and then accountability, but really at the end of the day, I have to keep myself accountable anyway, and I'm working on self motivation, you know, keeping my self esteem up, not getting down on myself. So um, work kind of has been going that same way. I've, you know, would get down on myself for not knowing a topic or a subject that I need to learn quickly, but I'm just now into the blaming it's the technology and the platform. It's not me. It makes me feel better anyway. Maybe not the most healthy uh, outlet, but you know, I'm doing things about it to improve my sense of self and my own self image. Kind of what David had talked to. So um, yeah, I mean, I feel great. Like I haven't had any brain fog. That was like always my biggest thing. Have always had a good memory, but you know, just between poor sleep, poor nutrition, like I felt like I was just struggling to say words. And you know, even though I'm only 36, like it's still kind of a concerning. It was a concerning moment for me where I couldn't remember certain things. So, um, just doing everything to be a healthier person.
Right on, brother.
Yeah.
I think yeah, the brain fog thing, I think it's really hard just it's really abstract, you know, because if you're working out, you know, your muscles are sore. If you're tired, you know, you're tired. If you're hungry, you know, you're hungry. With work and those types of things, it's like kind of hard to tell sometimes when you're just overwhelmed or what's really causing some of these issues. And like you had mentioned, lack of sleep, um, some other things that kind of feed into your general mental energy throughout the day. And yeah, I was dealing with that for a little bit too, with just kind of being overstimulated in a new office, new role, new responsibilities, not really finding a rhythm so quickly. And yeah, so luckily that's changed a little bit. But even with the more responsibilities and things that I've been getting, like mistakes still happening, you know, staying on later to correct things that I used to do to make sure everything looks correct. And there were some things that I like thought about and those had come up. So really, at least for me, kind of reframing things as learning teachable moments and also kind of having that humbling humility and like also the other side of it is like you can't play scared, right? Like I
Yep.
know now what to do, what I'm supposed to do, how to make sure that things looked correct. The biggest problem I think is just making things harder for other people if they can't trust like what they're looking at is accurate or if it's true or what have you. So that's really something that I've cared about and pride myself on is being that person of responsibility and reliability. So when it doesn't happen, it sucks. But that was kind of one of the big things that I talk to my therapist about, and I've talked about at length, but just kind of the shame based motivation spiral and working my way out of that, because as a kid you're taught to feel shame for things that you did wrong, and you feel bad about it until you do something to make up for it. And that's still true. I mean, you're never going to be perfect 100% of the time, and if you can't be proactive about something, then you got to react quicker and communicate and make sure you understand, what went wrong, what can you do better the next time. But you also can't get too down on yourself about it either, because that just kind of holds on you, and you're more focused on not making a mistake than actually doing the work and trusting your processes and um, learning as you go. Because I feel like that's the frame that these mistakes and things need to be taken from a person, that it is a learning moment, it's a teachable moment, and what are you going to do with it? Instead of, okay, yeah, I really messed up. I'm useless. I can't. Why can't I do something that's so simple? And then you focus so much time on making sure that those specific mistakes don't happen again, and you end up making a different one. Instead of like, oh, okay, yeah, I know better for the next time. I'll make sure I'll take care of that, and I'm not spending 2 hours after something that should take 20 minutes trying to comb through everything. Just trust the work and the processes that I've learned up until this point to take that further. And it is somewhat difficult just trying to gain that trust, like being a newer person, but uh, it's not really a setback. I think it's kind of understood from a perspective like, okay, yeah, you're going to make mistakes and things are going to happen. And really, you get more grace, which is nice. But and the other part of it too is like just really always rebuttaling like the negative connotation in my mental conversations.
Yeah, I get that. The they always say in football the best ability is availability, right? So I mean, I can go. Obviously, that's for football. That's just being able to show up and play every Sunday is a big thing. But I think for me, that goes a longer way of in my career of just one, obviously physically being at work, never really calling in sick, but moreover, just I'm we're at a point with our company where we kind of have to we're not overworked. We have more work than we probably should, but that's kind of a sign that we're busy. We're making enough business to keep the lights on and all that. But two, it signals that we're becoming kind of subject matter experts in our work, and no one else is going to be able to kind of do the things that I do, at least in my particular profession of being a web developer for our two different e-commerce sites, and just IT work in general. But they're it's sink or swim, right? Ice Cube says sink or swim, you got to think to win. So I think not getting down on yourself, having that mental availability for yourself, um, to learning new things and giving yourself grace, I think is the most important thing you can have in life, and really in a career. And it's taken me a long time. I mean, I've been at this company just according to LinkedIn 16 months. It's taken me probably about that long to kind of figure that out. Um, because I it's the job that I'm in is different. Like, I'm setting my own workload, I'm setting my own pace, I'm setting up, meetings, walking through all of the project guidelines, taking in stakeholder input, feedback, and all that. Right? Like, I have to manage all of that, just and also my workload. So I have to have it down to a process that makes sense and manageable, and that I can kind of speak to of things that I'm doing. So, but now that I'm not newer, quote unquote, I have that, I guess, experience to say that that I can do all of that and it not overwhelm me. So it definitely takes a bit of time, and you, like you've been saying, you kind of just have to draw on your experiences, even if it doesn't make sense for the current problem that you're facing. You kind of have to draw on that and figure out the problem that's in front of you.
Right. And I think the big thing, I just like saying can't play scared. So that's
Yeah.
just like the mental mantra that I've been saying for so long, just because it. I finally watched the replacements because
Oh, good movie.
yeah, and that was the Gene Hackman R.I.P.
Yeah.
That was the question he asked Keanu Reeves' character, which I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Shane
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 Falco.
Falco. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, what's the difference between winning and losing? And at the beginning of the movie, Keanu's like the score. And then as it goes along, like that's what Gene Hackman, you get into the middle of the movie, and that's what Gene Hackman tells him. It's like, you separate the winners from the losers because the winners want the ball when the game's on the line.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I mean, and that's, if you think about that and consider winners, that they want that responsibility, they want that feeling of like, I'm not going to win every time, but I'm going to go out there and like I want it. So that's kind of what spoke to me a little bit. And as I've been getting more into kind of the mental adaptations of th- things that I've held on to, processes that I've held on to for a long time that I hadn't even realized that I was doing that were negative, and now moving more towards like more positive things. Whereas I used to just kind of take that mental thoughts and, uh, like I said, negative upon it, positive connotations of those thoughts. Like I didn't think it really mattered too much, but I can definitely tell a difference in the last few weeks of how I'm speaking to myself, how I critic less criticizing, and then more kind of like pushing things more into a positive, as much as I can. Because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like mistakes are going to happen. Okay, you made a mistake. How do you make up for it, or what do you do because of that mistake? And that's really the biggest thing. And you can't play scared, right? You can't
Yep.
play with uh, not trying to lose, right? Like you're trying to win, but to be able to win, if you're stressed or if you're facing a deadline, like you still have to stick to those systems. And as you go along, you learn these things, and as you learn them, you put them into practice, and can't really get away from that. And I think in work, in life, things happen. It's a lot easier to break a good habit than it is to break a bad one, obviously.
Yep.
So, who are you when you're stressed out, you're facing a deadline, you got brain fog, can't think right, are you who are you when things like that happen? Um and I think that's really kind of what separates a lot of people that had either figure it out, or maybe they figured it out like a long time ago, and it's tough to continue on. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to, you know, diet for a few weeks or go to the gym for a few weeks, but where are you when it's cold outside, or when you don't feel like going, or something's coming up that there's going to be a lot of triggering things for you, right? And I think that is really hard to kind of simulate, and whether or not it's like a good thing to try to simulate or not. But when they come up, it's like, you can't sit and make excuses for yourself, or and sometimes, yeah, I mean, if you do make that mistake, then how does it affect you? It's like, oh, I shouldn't have had that pizza, or I stopped for fast food, or I didn't hit the gym today, or I made a mistake at work. Um, what do you take away from that? And I think for me, like, it is tough because a lot of the convenient things that we can do are toxic, but there are some convenient things that we can do that are positive. And unfortunately, like journaling, reading, planning, taking notes. Like, I mean, these things take effort, they take time. And how do you plan your day around that while also making sure you get good sleep, that you're not taking away from the next day's energy that you need, and some of these other things. So yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of thought and a lot of things that go into it. And um, but trying to identify, like the biggest detractors from your productivity or your creative thinking or some of these other things is really what I've been focusing on. And it's taking time, obviously, as most things do, but I feel like I'm trending in the right direction. I'm investing towards that future, and it comes from that, all the foundation from a place of love and grace, and the feeling like you are good enough, but you want to get better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all that. For me, it's I mean, foundational work is always lay the groundwork, as they say. But for me, it's been kind of just sticking up for myself. Even if it's uh, doing a demo for a product or something, and I get feedback of why'd you do it like this. As long as I've been able to speak up of as to why I've been able to do it, I think I get some kind of common ground with the person I'm dealing with, or even kind of sticking up to my wife. Like, not to say she's like overbearing or anything, but it's like if I normally would just go along with the flow and living kind of a chaotic life with a small business owner, I've kind of had to say like, hey, we're I don't like the pace that we're currently going. We need to kind of switch up our schedules because, like, at the end of the day, I'm getting burnt out. And I know that you're getting burnt out of working every weekend. So, like, let's figure something out. And I think it was because she felt at first that she was, felt like she had to plan everything accordingly. But you know, I always had the mantra of being easygoing, but at times where now that I'm married and there's two other people in my life that I have to account for, I think for us it was just coming to an agreement of what works for both of us. At first it was kind of just like what made sense and I just went along with it. But now I'm getting to a point, especially, in my career, it's like, we have to have family time. We have to have all of this. Like, we can't just be working 24/7. So we both are working towards working on ourselves. One, we're both in therapy separately and together. We go to couples therapy. I'm not ashamed to admit any of that. Everyone needs a tune up, even a couple. But we're both working on ourselves and we're trying to become more empathetic and we're coming to more common ground on things. So that situation is never easy. And there's, not gonna lie, there's a lot of arguments over stupid things that probably shouldn't have happened, but we're getting towards the path of that happiness and that coming from a place of love rather than frustration, because my wife works 60 plus hours, so I'm home with my son a lot, and like, I love my son, but I don't want to be spending every waking hour. I mean, that probably sounds selfish and caring, but like, there's just times where I'm just like burnt out and I want to go to the gym or go play video games or just sit in silence for 20 minutes and then go to bed. So we've worked our way around all of these things, um, and we're working towards the place where we can both succeed. So we're getting more structure in our lives, and it takes communication. You know, um, where it's it's it doesn't seem like it's moving as fast as maybe it actually is. Like, it's kind of like taking time to kind of slow down and appreciate these things, like that we're slowly getting there. Um, that's for my perspective. It's one more piece in the puzzle of of life and trying to figure out all these things, because it's like there are times where it's like I need to find escapes, or mentally or whatever, and going to work sometimes and just figuring out a coding puzzle or whatever is a rewarding part of my day. And there are other times where if I come home from a frustrating day, it's like, I want to play with my son. Like, it's just finding the perfect balance of this thing with other stakeholders in your life, say to say. So, um, long-winded response of we're mentally getting there. My wife is going through it herself, so we're trying to lift each other up and become better people.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think, yeah, at the end of the day, like in terms of couples, like people get together for a reason, and I think the same thing with life and work and being in a relationship, a marriage, and having kids and that. Um, yeah, sometimes you have to shake things up. And as far as anyone that's thinking about going to therapy, I think we talked about this a lot, but and I've said it earlier when we were talking in this episode, but there are things that you don't realize that you're doing that affect you negatively, or the systems or the things that you do that you don't think about too often that are affecting you negatively and you don't realize it. So that's what therapy really helps with. And the people
Yep.
that say, "Oh, I don't need it." Well, yeah, you don't think you need it because you don't think there's, problems, but everyone can get better. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to go to therapy. Some people can come to some of the realizations on their own. But I know life is stressful for a lot of people in whatever capacity of things that you're dealing with. So there are some things that get swept under the rug, or there's some things that get overlooked. And it's really helpful to have somebody that is there to help. And really the process of like asking you these questions, asking you to dive deeper. Oh, well, when did this start? Why do you think you do that? And how are you doing? How is your week going? How have you been working on the things that we talked about? And yeah, with, like you said, it takes time. Losing weight takes time. Feeling better about your self image takes time. Just because there's so many habits that have been gotten into for however long throughout our lives that we thought served us, and come to find out it doesn't serve us anymore. Or how do you, if you've been at a job for a few years, how do you not stay complacent? How do you continue getting better? How do you structure your time in a chaotic world of not knowing what it is that you're going to have to do with each day? So, um, yeah, I think that was, and the big thing that I talked to my therapist about last time I spoke to her and over the last few weeks of how do I, how do I really know if I'm making progress? Because with the shame based spiral thing is like you feel bad about yourself, you try to take, and to circumvent that, you try to take on way too much at once, and it works for a little while, and then you either fail and you feel worse about yourself, like you can't accomplish what you set out to do, or it works well enough for a while that you feel good about yourself enough that you stop doing it, and you stop altogether. So then really, like, how do you get past like these stopping moments, and how do I set good progress to be knowing I'm starting out small and then working towards, the next step, folding more in? And I think that's like the one thing that I've been thinking about more, and I still don't have like the a great answer, but that's what got me thinking more about some of these things that are toxic. um Gosh, what do you, like, they're efficient to do, or like they're easy to do, like ordering things on Amazon or DoorDash or whatever, like these conveniences that become toxic. And I want to try to get more positive convenience to say, okay, how do I make it easier for me to be able to track some of these things? How do I make it so if I don't have, the time today each day to journal, or if I get in bed and I'm like too tired to write things down or to read, like, how do I plan around that? Or how do I know I'm doing something well enough to say, like, I'm doing this 80% of the time, so I can add in more. But then how do I know what to add in that it's not going to, negatively affect me on the amount that I'm doing? And I think it's same to say, like, oh, you can go to the gym for 2 hours and get less done than if you were there for an hour. but what matters to you. If you have more time to spend there and you're being patient, you're taking your time, or you're not overdoing something, or if some of the days like you feel better about doing something that you needed to get done even though you felt like you had no time to do it, whereas the days that you do have that time and you just kind of want to get that back and chill out for a little bit. And I guess like taking things day by day and really figuring out what matters to you, I think are kind of the big questions that I've had over the last few months and some of this like discovery and knowing and feeling like who you are as a person and building off of that, like your identity based self. Like I don't have goals. I just, when I think about like work, like, I don't have goals necessarily, but I care about the work that I do. I care about continuous improvement. I care about helping out the people I work with. Um, and some of these other things. And then that lends me to, okay, well, I can take this on, or I can take that on. And it's just kind of like that continuous compounding interest of investing in yourself. So, yeah, to make a short story long, which is another phrase that I've been liking to say. I just like a lot of different phrases. I like legs feed the wolf is another good one.
Oh, I like that one.
Can be applied to a lot of things, but usually when somebody's like, "Oh, I got leg day," I'm like, "Oh yeah, legs feed the wolf." you know, because wolf doesn't have strong legs, can't run fast enough to hunt things down. Wolf don't get fed. Or if you're trying to do something at work, you're like, "Yeah, I'm learning about this to do this." I'm like, "Oh yeah, legs feed the wolf."
Yeah, I just ran through I guess speaking of the wolf, the white wolf, I ran through the new season of The Witcher in a couple of days because it just happened to come out on both days that I work from home and I needed kind of a distraction, so I watched that. But it was always a saying of never lost, always found. Um, I'm still trying to decipher how that works in my life, but it sounds exotic, so I've been kind of using it, even if it doesn't make any sense. I just haven't taken the time to kind of maybe try to figure out a definition of how it works in my life, but it's one of those cheesy movie sayings that you kind of just like it's like Fast and the Furious, for family, right? No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. You know, so I wish I had a more well thought out one for you, David. I failed us and our listeners, but I was, a funny
It's
saying that I
opportunity for learning. You'll
yeah
do better next time.
exactly. Opportunity meet what's the saying when opportunity meets preparation meets opportunity. All right, there you go. There's one for the listeners. Boom. I didn't have the preparation to use it, but I had the opportunity
You had
to.
the opportunity, yeah. So I guess Legs Feed the Wolf was from Herb Brooks' Miracle on the Ice, which I actually skimmed
Oh,
through the other day because
another great
uh,
movie.
yeah, because I
And you're
watched
like,
Coach Carter because I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, I really remember liking this movie, and I don't remember too much of it. And people talk about it all the time, like in my circles. So I watched it, and then because I don't know what it is, I have problems with biopics because I don't like whether it's like embellishment or like their version of the truth of like what things happened. But I do like based on a true story type stuff. Like I like Miracle on the Ice, Coach Carter, which was based on a basketball coach that he was actually on set and like while they were filming it to make
hmm,
sure that a lot of things were accurate. I'm sure he, you know, didn't make sure everything was accurate,
right,
but
yeah,
no, I kind of enjoy stuff like that, and they kind of put phrases and mindsets and things towards what it took to accomplish what they were setting out to accomplish. And for that, like I like it. So like Herb Brooks, legs feed the wolf. You got Kurt Russell out there coaching up these college kids to go and play against the Soviets at the Olympics in Lake Placid. Coach
yeah,
Carter shuts down the gym because the athletes aren't doing well in their studies and graduates a lot of them. I guess he actually opened up like Coach Carter Academy or Carter Academy or something like that in Texas, where kids learn like life skills as well as school. So it's
Yeah, I wish we had something. I mean, I know the constant complaint is, we learned how to use geometry or the
mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
yeah, or Pythagorean theorem, but we didn't learn how to balance a checkbook or, you know, pay your bills, that type of thing. I mean, if that's what that is, that'd be great. I mean, I know sometimes it's trial by fire with life, but those would have been at least helpful courses to learn in high school. Especially your senior year. Like, I mean, let me just say I was never one to I had senioritis in my junior year. That's how little I cared after I stopped playing sports. But that would have been probably a class that I would took my senior year and didn't skip. Would have been to learn how to do all that. We didn't have shop, right? Like, so I had my dad was one of the types to never really teach me those skills. Sorry, just venting all of my frustration of life right now. But it's things that I've kind of learn how to do over the last couple of years. But that's great if you open that academy. I know that's becoming standard in Florida curriculum. Um, so that's cool. Get everybody ready for life now. If they just need to teach kids how to not want to drive through Taco Bell at 2 o'clock in the morning, because you're hungry and coming from a buddy's house hungover. So, uh, I digress.
Yeah. Well, I think the system is really set up for people to fail. They want to extract as much of your time, as much as your money as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And they want food to be more addictive. They want, if credit card companies made it so that you'd have to send a check in the mail by mule to pay off your credit card every month, they would do it.
Right.
You know, Taco Bell and DoorDash and Amazon. I mean, they if there's some of the things that they're getting away with currently that they probably shouldn't be able to get away with. Um, but yeah, your time, your money, what you're willing to do each day. Yeah, I mean, it really affects a lot of other things, and that's what they're out to get. I mean, Facebook, Google, they want to capture more of your attention and more of your time to be able to sell ads. Amazon wants you to buy more things, and DoorDash wants to make it as convenient as possible for you to get food at any one time. So
Right.
that's what I had focused on before, and what I'd want to continue compounding on is just kind of taking that power back and not being, the average American consumer. Because
Yep.
successful people, I mean, they find a way to do that, and they find a way to have the time to cook and grocery shop and go to the gym and do some of these things. And yeah, some days you're not going to feel up to it, but 80% of the time they're doing these things. So would it be a good idea for kids not to just get lunch every day, but they had to work to put together the meal that they would be eating that day? Then yeah, I think that would be a good idea. If they learn about, because I'm pretty sure we learned about it, but I probably just forgot about it because it was boring. But compounded interest on credit cards, or being financially secure and what that means, and also learning kind of basic house stuff. How do you replace an outlet or a light switch, or if you want to put in a new light fixture or install a new dishwasher, or fix a fridge, figure out what the problem with that is, or so a bunch of like these other things, which I guess you can kind of learn. I've used YouTube a lot and figured some of these things out when they've arisen. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess people have different paths, and I know a lot of people that rent just because they like the convenience about never having to worry about if uh, something breaks, that they have to pay to replace it, or if they have to take the time to learn how to fix it, or what have you. So it's kind of different for everybody, and um, like me at my job, I park in like one of the furthest parking spots from the door just so I can get those extra steps in. And people are like, oh, and I used to be like, really judgmental about people that would try to park as close as they could to you know, the grocery store front door or something. And then I, came to realize, well, some people could be getting regular exercise every day, so they don't need that. But for me, I need it. I need to take the stairs at work because if I don't, then I'm not going to get more of that exercise that I need. But other people throughout the day or, after work or something that they can exercise on their own time or get those steps in or whatnot. For me, I have to because otherwise I won't.
Yeah, I that's one thing that owning I shouldn't say owning, leasing a truck has, I guess, had teach me I've learned the hard way is that I cannot park in a regular parking spot close to the grocery store, or I can do it at work, but I just choose not to. Um, because even if you find a section that has open spots that's reasonably close to the door, like it's going to fill up quickly, and like you're not going to be able to get it back into your truck. Like it's not happening. So I have to park all the way back, find a cart, walk in, and rinse, lather, repeat until my my lease is up here in a couple months. But uh, I've learned to walk um, long distances in the parking lot. So um, I'm jealous of the people who have regular sized cars that can do that, but it's also taught me to, and I built back up my leg strength with the extra steps that I have to take. So um, that was one thing that I noticed. When I was like working retail to doing working a sedentary or I don't know what the fuck you say that. I always get it mixed up with rocks. Sedentary lifestyle. Uh,
Yeah, sedentary,
Sedentary. Yeah,
not
yeah.
sedimentary.
Sedimentary. Whatever.
Can't take things for granted.
Yeah. Aluminium. That's another one. I would say it the British way to be ironic, but then I forget that I forget how to pronounce it the American way. And, um, the trouble of having a sense of humor, I guess, a very dry one at that. Um, yeah, I built back up kind of like my leg strength that I had, not nearly what I had like when I was like working retail or anything like that, but um, things you learn, working a desk job isn't as always have all the perks that you think it does. So, um, there are consequences and reward to having such a that type of lifestyle. And again, things that I've learned too late of where I was at a couple months ago. I was at the heaviest I'd ever been, and I'm like, I'm dieting. I'm, feel like I'm sleeping on time, but none of that mattered because I wasn't really moving. I was like a rock at the bottom of a lake. So
Sedimentary.
sedimentary, yeah, sedimentary.
Sedimentary.
Yeah, pet rocks. Um, but these are all things that you figure out in time, and that's why I was having this conversation with my wife the other day. It's like I wish like a younger me would, you know, there's some sort of science of where you could just have the life experience of being in your 30s, like right out of college. I would have made so much less stupid mistakes, but it's part of the journey, right? That is the most rewarding because you don't see the progress, and I think that's where a lot of people who I think like I read from like recruiters on LinkedIn all the time of like people are really cheating on um like in person even interviews or assessments for coding where they're just like they look at the camera and then they'll like look off for a second to type something in the chat GPT for a response, and then they get hired and fired in the same day because they can't do even close to the 10% of what they said they could. So um I if you take shortcuts, um, one, you don't get trying to find the easy way out. One, it's not rewarding for you as a brain. Two, you don't know how to problem solve or troubleshoot these things. Or it's like my nephew doesn't really know how. If his iPad stopped working, he doesn't know how to fix it. He'll turn it on, turn it off, turn it back on again, and if it doesn't work, right? Like, or as an example, or a further example, my uh, teacher friend, he teaches music, band actually, and he they have an electric stapler for their sheet music in his office, but they didn't apparently know that you had to plug it in or where to replace the staples. So he had to do all that themselves. And mind you, these are kids who are honor students, so it's not like they completely lack intelligence. It's just sometimes you don't have that. Uh, it's not even life experience, just the knowledge of troubleshooting, right? And going back to our conversation from earlier is that like you can't take shortcuts in life. There are some things that you can, meal prep is one. You can get the bag lettuce, even though it's probably full of chemicals, but you're done in 5 minutes. But you didn't learn how to you what you're depriving yourself of is learning how to use a knife, chop lettuce properly, and wash it. And you're also paying a higher unit price, so there's economic factors there. Um, And to be realistic, to make a salad doesn't take that fucking long, you know. But there's probably a more complex example that I can come up with. Again, opportunity eats preparation. Didn't really have that for this podcast, but what I'm driving at is that as much as I wish that if I were 18, I wish I could have the experience that I have now to change my decisions on some things, but I didn't want to rob myself of a journey, and I think you have to kind of just be your own passenger and your own driver of sorts on this crazy thing called life. So I'm 36. I am probably lacking certain experiences for other people at my age. Like I know I'm not nearly have much saved as I should. Every like Forbes article says that you're supposed to have like I think like 50 to 100 grand saved up. Not even close. Like probably gonna be working until I'm in my 80s, and with the way that Social Security is going anyway, was kind of mentally prepping for that anyway. So, um, I, I, I'm glad that I've experienced the things that I have, and I'm finally, I think I'm to a point where I work for a company and I'm content with the work that I do and it's satisfying. Um, in my personal life, it's, I'm happy, I'm happily married and I love my son and, I'm kind of love with where I'm at, but I also have to recognize that without putting myself down and giving myself grace, I do have a long way to go to improve as a person. But again, that's part of the journey.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot too, and kind of come to the same conclusion because their parents would always try to tell us it's like, oh, this isn't gonna matter, or you need to learn this. You're like, oh, shut up, you're old. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand me. Like, you
Yeah,
don't even know what's going on. And for like the majority of that, they do, because typically the things that repeat themselves, and fortunately, or and unfortunately, I guess for a lot of people, like I did learn some things from my parents growing up, but I think for a lot of things, it was like the wrong thing to do. Or like with, oh, you got to go to college, is like, okay, but you're not any help in in knowing like what I should get into, and I didn't take the time to actually figure out what would be a viable career path. So it took me a long time to even figure something like that out. But that's where it kind of comes down to the identity, because me and you were both in the same coding class. That unfortunately that whole market practically shut down. But
yeah,
the
yeah. No
the time
kidding.
spent in that, the knowledge learned there, is like if you can get into a company and start to do some of these things, like they might not hire you for to do that or to have that experience, but it'll come with time. Or how do you plan out like what you're going to try to do in work and in coding? What I liked about it too is like, okay, well, we're trying to accomplish this. What's the first step? What what's the baseline? How do I build the foundation? And that's kind of where you go from it. And it translates to a lot of different things in life. Okay, well, if I want to go to the gym, what's the foundation? What's the baseline? I want to build up my leg muscles. I want to, make sure I have the time to do it. Do I care about a sense of community? Do I care about what amenities do I want from a gym? Why have I, looking back, like, why did I fail in the past? Or and what can I take from those experiences to make this better? And yeah, I mean, it does take time in life, and there's a lot of things that I feel like I've done and hadn't really thought about, but there are lessons to be taken from, every decision that you make and every opportunity that you have. So, really, in life, and what I've been trying to do is like have those opportunities, the opportunities to learn, the opportunities to, who am I if I get enough sleep every night or have a good nighttime routine or exercise or, communicate to the best of my abilities with other people and get to know people and build that sense of community around in a workspace and these things. So there are a lot of different variables, choices, opportunities, and everything every day that if you have the opportunity to take advantage of, you might see that your life becomes better, or you might figure out something that you don't like, which sometimes is equally as important, for career path, for exercise, for eating right, or whatnot. So it's really about like that experimentation and not getting so down on yourself because it takes so long to figure these things out, and to get out of like the quote unquote rat race, or for me, like the shame based spiral. Um, and for other people, there's probably some other things that they do each day that affect it like that. But if you look at it, um, like not feeling good about yourself, maybe you don't have the greatest financial situation, or maybe you didn't have a lot of opportunities to learn growing up, or you didn't pay too much attention in school, but you can make that back. But with anything else, it takes time. And, is it so bad to be eating Chef Boyardee when you don't have a lot of money, or hot dogs, or whatever else? It's like, no, in some instances, it's not. That if you don't have a gym membership and you just have to run outside, run around the block or do something, like, yeah, I mean, that's good too, to be out in nature and get out and do some things. And I know I'm not trying to be toxically positive because there are quite a few people that may not have that opportunity to do that, but there are, definitely options every day. And um, unfortunately, some people have to take too much time to focus on some of the things that are more mission critical. And yeah, I mean, it's tough for a lot of people, and it's sad to think about. I wish we could, kind of exist in a world where no one had to kind of worry about those things, and they had, ample time for themselves to do things that are better for them or healthier or what have you. But unfortunately, that's, just not the nature of how things are. And unfortunately, the people in power don't want it to go that way. So I don't think it's coming anytime soon.
Yeah. I know that at least as of this writing, as they say in articles, that so two federal judges that had to or blocked the Trump administration from cutting off SNAP benefits. I'm not sure where we're at with that, but yeah, I mean, not everyone, or to, I guess, to my point is that, not everyone has the same opportunities and maybe resources at any one given time. And, I know food banks are kind of going to be overwhelmed here in the next couple of days, but, um, I empathize with those folks in certain ways. And, I'm lucky that I'm able to afford food as it, or maybe condescending as that sounds, but, I can't afford to buy, you know, I don't know, a feast for everyone. I can't afford to feed everyone in outside of my house. But I try and offer food and, you know, whatever I can to people. Maybe it's as a way to kind of give back in a way that I can. So if, you know, uh, if I were poor and couldn't afford a home gym, or just didn't have that resource, there's a video training that I saw on YouTube where people are working out with like cinder block. They were literally weightlifting with cinder blocks that they found in a back alley, and they were going running in the dead of winter, right? Like you just have to know, um, and have the motivation to do those things. To recognize that, hey, recognize and utilize your resources to the best of your ability. I mean, that's a kind of a core concept that we preach here in this podcast. So, um, you know, uh, I'm hoping, and I feel for all those folks. Again, I'm not sure the exact thing that's going on with the SNAP benefits right now, but you know, there's a lot of different resources that you can look into, and I know that I need to. I've been donating a lot of canned goods and things to my local. There's a local church like food bank, and then we have one here in the city. So trying, I'm not just giving away beans. Like I'm trying to do bread and things that won't necessarily perish right away, but I know there's a lot of folks in need, and try to give back in ways that I can to those to make sure. Because it breaks my heart that there are kids out there that might be going hungry tonight. There's only so much nutrition candy can provide from Halloween the night before, but um, you know, um, and I think us as a nation and just as the world need to practice on the empathy and know that not everyone's trying to cheat the system. There are legit a lot of people who can't afford to, and it's a as you were alluding to, there's just a problem with society and government that we have right now that needs to be fixed. But we just need to do better for ourselves, and we have a responsibility for to leave the world, if not the same, better than how we found it. So, um, you know, do our part, make sure we better ourselves and better society. So, I think that's what I'll kind of wrap up on.
Yeah. Um, if you have the ability to, uh, definitely help out as much as you can. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just looking at some of this because I did see like the judge was, or the two judges that were saying that they had to pay him out, but it seems like that's not happening.
Yeah, I think the big stickler was Trump was kind of waiting on how they, not necessarily how they would fund it, but I think the wording on the ruling or something to that effect. I just happened to catch that in passing on an article, but um, yeah, I mean, I know some of the I forget the name of my local food bank, but it was I've seen pictures. I was like backed up. I just was it 42 million Americans are going to be without food for at least the next 2 weeks if they don't figure out something. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a can of beans or fucking a can of tomatoes is like, you know 73 cents or something. I mean, at least give somebody a chance to make a tomato soup or something that'll last a couple of days, right? Seems stupid, but every little thing helps.
Yeah. Not seeing like apparently, yeah, it's just not happening right now from what I'm reading. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's not great.
yeah. It is what it is. Not to bring the mood down, but that was something that was just on my mind that I kind of wanted to chat about, and you know, I mean, it's like I worry too, like with the rising food costs, like all these advertising feeding 10 people at Thanksgiving for $40, but it's like what's in all of that. I worry. I genuinely worry about the health, and like I don't. I'm better about eating. Like I mean, even like 2 weeks ago, I was still like I would go to like Walmart or to like Meijer or somewhere and buy groceries, and then like have little to no motivation to actually make any of this right when I got home, and I just like stop at McDonald's because I was just so hungry. Um, not not to change the subject of my own issues, but it's like food's expensive now, and it's like you only get so much money with these SNAP every month, and it's like, is that even gonna like? Does that even do anything? Like, is that a conversation? But I know that for us, I think even with the ability to bring food home and have lunch and all that, because my wife owns a restaurant, um, God, it's just it can be so much, and try not to way too much on that. It's just, we gotta feed ourselves and feed our kids. I'm just trying to not um, think about that too much for myself, but um, especially it's a convenience, like we talked about it earlier. Of fast food, which is I remember buying a McChicken like even 5 years ago was $1. Now it's like 2.29 per. So it's like you know something's got to give with this. I don't know what it is, but we're not going to figure it out in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So
No, no, we won't. And yeah, I mean uh I guess the like sense of community that had been driven down so much by the internet and social media and that, and I do see like quite a large I imagine there's quite a large turnout of people donating to food banks during this and trying to help out their neighbors as much as possible because yeah, I mean that's the reality of the situation, and if somebody needs help and you have the ability to help, then help them, you know. And I think that's, it's very admirable. But yeah, with the rising food costs for a lot of people and continuing rising costs across everything, it has been a struggle for a lot. And I think, most of America lives paycheck to paycheck. And if everything is becoming more expensive, then they're going to have to live like beyond their quote unquote means just because they're having to spend more just on basic necessities and whatnot. So I do hope something can change with it. And I do think the foundation is really set on like cities and neighborhoods and communities to help each other out and not make other people feel ashamed for not having what they have. I think a lot of us, if um, we were given opportunities or we were, raised with a sense of like learning and were taught a lot of things, and some other people just sometimes didn't have that, so it's really hard to kind of dig yourself out and spend that much time and effort into doing those things, especially if you're, a kid and there's much more that you had to worry about than, just making sure you got your schoolwork done. It's like where your next meal came from, where you're going to be living, and some of these other things. So I just, really wish people would kind of have that empathy and that compassion for others around them. And I think, a lot of people do, given the opportunity. But I think, yeah, a lot of other people are kind of stay quiet on a lot of those things because they just don't want to be judged for
yeah,
needing help, which is not, um, it's not great either, but it's understandable why some people don't ask for help.
yeah, fear of judgment's a real thing. That's why I didn't you know I always saw like videos of people fat shaming people at the gym. Um, and obviously those people would get roasted themselves online, but just one more thing to play in your head of, you know, are people watching me because I have some sick workout, or, I have a way of um, like a different exercise that they're interested in, or is it just because I'm, a big fat slob and running on a treadmill and sweating buckets because I liked eating cheeseburgers way too much as a kid, um, you know. But I personally am kind of just over that fear, and I'm not doing it for anybody else but myself. So, people want to make fun of me, fine, whatever. I don't really care anymore. I want to be not the current weight that I am. So, what does that look like? That means blocking out the outside noise, having a healthier outlook for yourself, good motivation, and making sure everything's in the right place for you mentally and physically. So, I was used to have body dysmorphia. I used to think that like I could fit into some slick looking button up, and then like when I look in the mirror, it's like my buttons are all kind of popping out. So I had to overcome that and just come to the realization that I need to change things, and um, and I have a lot of credit card debt myself, so I've had to not like spend wait endless nights worrying about it. I've put a plan of action together to get paid down, so I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, and you know, things are always going to pop up, but that's why we plan and have open communication with not only ourselves but our partners or anyone else in our lives. You know, to make sure that they understand where you're at and where you're coming from, and you understand where they're coming from and where they're at. So, um, communication not with exterior but within yourself is very important, and you know I've learned that over the last few months, years, to not really care about other people's opinions when it doesn't really matter, especially when it comes to things like health. Um, but also listening when I do need to hear it, or need to hear from advice from people. Kind of discerning my own ego. So it's hard, but you know, we gotta can't lie, and we can't overprotect ourselves from these issues that we've had. So that's why I go to therapy, and that's why I do all these little things to build towards getting healthier and being better.
Yeah, you know, time, effort, some of these things, and like planning. I think like talking about some people would rather plan a trip than take a trip. I think I'd rather just take a trip. So it's
Right?
also the same thing. It's like, yeah, I'd rather just diet. I'd rather just exercise and not
Yeah.
really have like a plan put in place. Um, but yeah, like everyone has a plan, and you come to find out certain things, and you got to adjust, and it takes time. And the other kind of mental blocks and things that you deal with every specific day. I mean, everyone's unique in that the way that they think, and unique in the way that they were raised and the experiences that they've had, but also unique in the things that they deal with. And whether or not the body dysmorphia that like you deal with is the same as like what somebody else would deal with, or the anxiety and things that I deal with, or like the chain based spirals and kind of the systems in place that I've set. Everyone kind of comes to, comes to their own answers with a lot of those things, or whether or not they serve them or not.
Right.
But that's what, I guess for me at least, what I'm working towards of like, okay, well, I know I have some things that I need to work through. Where do they come from? Why do I use them? How do I challenge them? And then on the other sense of like, how can I build off of that increased knowledge of these aren't good, need to move away from them? How do I get, kind of more self love and work towards some of these things? So, yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Um, as we're sitting here talking on a podcast in our houses and having financial security and everything. So it's even difficult for us. So it's hard to imagine, the people that, um, struggle just to be able to survive every day or keep the lights on and whatnot. So yeah, I'm current currently looking right now where I can donate food to. So I'll probably do that like today or tomorrow. And hopefully help some people out that need it.
Yeah. After we stop recording, I'm going to Walmart to pick up a huge, slight, reasonable sized pickup order, and I'll have its canned goods. So I'm just gonna drop it off at my local church, and hopefully it helps someone. Um, you know, do keep not necessarily keep the lights on, but obviously, but feed themselves, feed the kids, for however long. So just trying to do what I can. May not be enough, but it's all I can do at this moment, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we're just about time here. So, any last parting notes of wisdom, any
Um,
phrases?
no, I don't have no nothing. No, nothing.
Alrighty. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Brian, for hopping on. Hope that
Thank you.
continues going well for you.
Yeah, hope work. You sound like you're in a good path, and I hope work gets easier for you. But it sounds like you're already in a good direction too.
Yep, it will. It'll get better, but hopefully, still remain challenging. I guess just trying to find that balance.
For sure.
All right. See ya.
See you.